Welcome to UTO Training's second session on instructional design models. I'm hoping that you'd already caught our first. If not, I strongly suggest that you do catch that on the Teach and Learn site and also on our UTO Training YouTube page. My name's Chris Lee, and I'll be taking you through this today. Our plan for this series is to discuss a number of theories in instructional design, and then how to utilize those to make life as easy as possible for those of you designing courses. Innovation and research are at the heart of online learning. Every year, new e-learning methodologies and technologies come to light, and as such, choosing the best instructional design model for your course design can be a challenge. In this session, I'm going to be exploring 8 tips to help you select the ideal instructional design approach for your next course. Now, keep in mind that instructional design models serve as a framework for your entire course. They dictate the activities you choose, how you'll end up assessing your learners, and the level of peer interaction you want your learners to exhibit. For this reason, it's essential to take your time selecting the perfect instructional design model that aligns with your learning strategy and learning objectives. Otherwise, you may end up switching halfway through your course development, which means you'll have to start from scratch. So let's take a look at 8 valuable tips for choosing the best instructional design model for your next course. First, take a look at your own cognitions. Before you narrow down your list of instructional design models, you should ponder one very important question. What makes the approach I'm looking at accepting stand out from the others? In most cases, personal beliefs, opinions, experiences play a crucial role in that determination. A lot of thought goes into choosing the ideal model or theory for your course design. You typically draw upon past experiences, such as what worked and what didn't work, or what you'd like to improve. For instance, another instructional design model may have left out one key component that you felt was necessary for your course. You have the power to use all of this personal experience during the selection process. However, your cognitions can work against you, especially if you formed an opinion or bias that prevents you from researching certain instructional design models. Take a closer look at your thought process to determine if your cognitions are helping or hindering your course design. Doesn't necessarily mean it does, but we all tend to fall into our own little patterns, and I know I've done that many a time in designing courses in the past. Use your learning objectives as a reference point. Ultimately, the instructional design model serves your learning objectives, goals, and desired outcomes. It should not be the other way around. You must clearly define your objectives beforehand and use them to guide when choosing your instructional design approach. This allows you to select an instructional design model that features the right behaviors, principles, and methodologies. If you skip this step, you might have to change your instructional design model. It shouldn't be this way. Your instructional design model should be based on your learning objectives and should serve your learning objectives. It should never be the other way around. Evaluate every aspect of the instructional design model. Every model possesses its own principles, ideologies, and behavioral reasoning. For example, one instructional design model may recommend a more holistic approach, while another involves behaviorist theories. This is why it's important to examine and evaluate every component of the instructional design model before you make your final decision. And again, it should match your learning objectives and the key outcomes for your course. Also keep in mind that you can blend different instructional design elements of different models to create your own strategy. And I strongly suggest doing that as you design your course. Find the elements that work best with the course that you're designing. Make sure that the elements that you're utilizing serve the objectives and outcomes for your course and makes the learning experience that much better for both your learner and for what you're trying to achieve. If you've got a team of instructional designers helping you, be it at one of the various colleges here at Arizona State University or within various teams that we have here at the University Technology Office, keep their input in mind. They've got good ideas usually, and they know what's worked and has not worked in the past. Your instructional design team is going to use the instructional design model as a guideline when they create your course content. As such, they should have a direct say during the selection process of your instructional design. Their input may sway your opinion and give you a fresh perspective. For example, you may have overlooked an instructional design model that is ideal to your next course based on a preconceived notion that it didn't fit your teaching or learning style. Never forget to consider the needs and preferences of your learners. You've got a team that's there to help you in most cases when it comes to instructional design, but in addition to them, you should also consider the needs of your audience. This involves surveys, pre-assessments, and past experience. An instructional design model may be ideally suited for the subject matter, but does it cater to the specific traits, abilities, and skills of your students? Their backgrounds, knowledge base, and personal preferences are all important considerations to ensure that you are providing them with the ideal learning experience and to ensure that you are passing on learning that they're going to retain. Gather your resources in advance. I cannot overstate this. Every instructional design model requires certain resources or activities. The question is, do you have everything you need to uphold the integrity of the instructional design model you've chosen? For instance, you may not have the tech resources to follow all the key principles. If you're trying to train students on certain systems and you're utilizing an LMS system, do you have everything set up to connect to that system so they can try out those resources? Understanding the possible needs for your course in advance will assist you in determining which instructional design model best fits your learning outcomes. Next, you want to look at each instructional design model that you're considering with a modern eye. Instructional design models must provide your modern learners with a dynamic, interactive, and engaging learning experience. Understand that if we're designing this training, especially if it's going to be used in an online or LMS format, it's going to be around for a little while. That's why it's crucial to examine every instructional design model from a modern perspective. Does it blend technology with a human interaction? Are your online learners able to explore the subject on their own and get what they need from the course without some of the course seeming outdated? Does it cater to a diverse range of learning needs and preferences? Are you able to change certain things within the course without having to change the whole course? These are all important considerations as you're designing your course. And this leads us to the idea of planning for the future. In addition to modern learners, you should also consider future audiences. And when we talk about modern learners, I'm thinking a year or two from now. When I talk about future audiences, I'm thinking a decade from now. This is especially true for, again, our online learning community. Online learners from the future are going to be accessing your course to get the information they need. But is your instructional design model going to date the design or hinder the learning process? Many of us have seen on YouTube courses that were done, say, in the 1980s. And as much as the content might be important, the learning environment or way of approach seems dated, and hence the learning seemed dated. You want to examine your course knowing that ahead of time. So for instance, is the model you're looking at relatively new? Has it been tried and tested? Ideally, the instructional design model must be tech-forward and flexible, so it stands the test of time, which we all understand is very difficult in an ever-changing world. But you need to keep that in mind. It's the ongoing debate over flash and substance. You want to make sure that your training has enough flash to bring the learner in and engage them, but retain its substance. But you don't want it to have too much flash that is just from today, where if they're looking at 5 years from now, it's lost all of its substance. If you already have a list of instructional design models for your next course that you're considering, you're on the right track. Utilize some of these suggestions to help narrow down what you're thinking. or use it as a rubric to weigh the pros and cons of various possibilities. It may take careful planning and research now, but selecting the right instructional design model can save you time and a lot of stress later on. In this UTO training session on instructional design, we discuss the 8 tips to help you choose the best instructional design model for your next course. In our next session, we will discuss classic conditioning and the research of Ivan Pavlov. I hope you can join us at that point. For questions about this training session, or for questions or ideas for other training in this series, you can always reach me at christopher.nigel.lee@asu.edu. And again, I remind you to check out our ASU UTO Training page and calendar for upcoming training sessions and for studio hours that we offer.